Good evening and welcome to the community meeting for the KNP Complex. This is Saturday, October 2nd. I say that because we will be recording this community meeting this evening and making it available later. So want everyone to know when this was recorded. This is also being live streamed, so hopefully everybody will be able to watch it. But if for any reason, if we have any glitches or something happens, please know that it will be recorded and we will be able to share it at a later date. I am Carrie Templin. I am your event moderator for the evening. I am a team member, Public Information with Southwest Area Incident Management Team 2. We will have a lineup of presenters. We have a lot of information to share this evening, lots of things happening. So bear with us while we go through the presenters. If you have questions that you want addressed, please drop them into the chat. We have people monitoring that, and we will do our best to answer just as many questions as possible after the presentations are over. With that, I will turn it over to Park Superintendent for Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, Clay Jordan.
Carrie, it is a pleasure to be with you again, but I wish it was on better terms. So again, my name is Clay Jordan, the Superintendent of Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. And if you're joining us for the first time, I came on board back in November of last year. And so tonight is our sixth public meeting since the start of the fires back on September 9th. And so if you're new to joining us for the first time, we welcome you. We welcome the questions. We really want to be as transparent as possible and to answer those questions. So if you joined us last time in Three Rivers, I spent probably commandeered about 20 minutes of the public meeting really talking about at the big picture level the various strategies that we've been using to fight the fire since day one. And I'm not going to go into that detail tonight. That is available if you're curious about how we got to this point. The efforts addressed a lot of rumors. You can go back to that recording. It is recorded online. But tonight, I do want to take a moment out. We are honoring the memory of a firefighter who lost his life on this date back in 2004. His name was Brian Hughes, a 26-year-old firefighter. He was a member of the Arrowhead Hotshots, who was based out of here at Sequoia Kings Canyon, and he died in a firefighting operation up here in Grant Grove. And I point that out because it really underscores the risks that firefighters assume. And here on the Kmp Complex since day one, the firefighters have worn a lot of different uniforms, a lot of different federal agencies, our partners with CAL FIRE, Tulare County Fire, of course, side by side working with the Office of Emergency Services from the state, from the county, the sheriff's departments. There's been a lot of uniforms. There's been a lot of people who do assume those risks. And I just want to express appreciation to all the uniforms, all the departments that have been engaged in this. And looking forward to a productive meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Our next presenter is Theresa Benson, and she is the Forest Supervisor for the Sequoia National Forest.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the community meeting for the Kmp Complex. I'm Theresa Benson, the Forest Supervisor for the Sequoia National Forest. So the Forest Service has been here working with our partners, the Park Service and CAL FIRE and Tulare County, Fresno County now as well. And we've been here since the first day on this fire, and we've been providing a lot of information about the forest and helping to design strategies as the fire was moving to the north. And so it's a very complex and rugged terrain that we're working in here. It's very heavy, dry fuels, an area of very heavy mortality. The area that the fire moved into recently on the Sequoia National Forest is right up here. The green part of the map here is the Sequoia National Forest. And the area that the fire moved into a couple of days ago on the Sequoia is where we've done quite a bit of recent fuels reduction work under a project called the Eschem Fuels Reduction Project. About 3,000 acres of very heavy mortality has been treated. In fact, we just finished the contract for that last week, the Hume Lake Ranger District. And the fire is moving into that area. It's around Heartland, Christian Camp, and Heartland and Eschem area. I know a lot of our forest communities in that area have been evacuated, and evacuations are hard. And it's for your safety. We have put that at the top priority, your safety as well as the safety of our firefighters and our first responders. And we are going to be continuing here with our partners, working to contain this fire as soon as we can, and just continuing that commitment and keeping our forest staff involved and providing whatever information and help we can from the Forest Service. And that's our commitment, working as a team with the rest of our partners. So thanks for joining us for this information meeting. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Chad Rice. He's our Operations Section Chief for Southwest Area Team 2.
Good evening. Chad Rice with your operational update for the Kmp Complex. The past few days has been a culmination of the drying that we've seen, and the fuels are becoming a little more readily available to burn that was not available 2 to 3 days ago. So we're seeing an increased fire behavior on all flanks of the fire. Given that, we're also seeing a heavier inversion each day. The smoke is socked in all the drainages throughout the whole fire area, limiting our use of aviation. Very, very thick smoke. Yesterday, we were able to utilize aviation resources after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Air Attack was able to get up and gain some intel, and we were able to work some helicopters in with the guys on the ground as needed. With that, we're also have drones at our disposal, so we're using those with their infrared technology so they can see through the smoke and gain that intelligence for the guys on the ground. So we'll start here on the south side of the fire in the Mineral King Road. Like I said, that brush component is becoming more readily available, so we're seeing an increase of fire behavior here on the south end. Here on the Mineral King Road, fire's still north, and that's our intent, is to keep fire the north of Mineral King. Right down here, it's a challenging piece of ground for everyone who knows it. Mineral King has a very steep cut bank on the north side of it. Fire's backing down, a lot of rolling material coming down that off that cut bank, but as of now, everything's still holding, especially in this area right here is an area of concern. We're getting into some transition from the brush component to the timber right here, and that brings a lot of overhead hazards with that piece of ground right there. Really steep slope, big trees, and a lot of mortality in those trees. So a lot of prep work continuing along the Mineral King Road. It's a dead-end road, so that raises issues for the future as this fire progresses. Coming south around Mineral King in this area right here, that's been pretty quiet. We've repopulated Three Rivers because of the successes we've had in here. Moving north along this whole face on the western side of the fire, that fire has become active in that brush component, and up on these ridge lines, if the smoke does lift, you'll see that there is some backing fire through some of that brush component that a few days ago was very, very moderated with the higher RHs. With the drying trend, we're seeing that all this, and our fire behavior will speak to it, that this is starting to wake back up. And this is really steep and rugged piece of ground that the crews cannot access. Fire did come down to our containment line right here. As we speak, the crews are allowing that to back down. Very favorable conditions, allowing that to come to the containment line right there, down this really steep slope. And if they add fire to that, or if they try and burn out, it's just going to cause adverse effects. So they're going to allow that to burn to the containment line. And we have dozer lines in place to help contain that here. Going in here closer to the Heartland community where the fire crossed the North Fork of the Kiowa River. This is that challenging piece of ground. There's a pretty good firefight happening right now with tying this fire back into the Kiowa River to keep it east of our containment lines. That's still in that brush component. That brush is really wanting to burn still. As we move up, the intent is to keep the fire in Redwood Canyon and to keep it out of the values here in that Eschem and Heartland, all the private infrastructure you can see right here. Everyone who knows this piece of ground, that is a steep, large canyon, Redwood Canyon, that leads all the way to the Redwood Grove into the General's Highway. A lot of slope alignment there with the fire progression. We could see some fire growth in there. And with that, last night we initiated firing operations on General's Highway up here to get fire backing down into Redwood Canyon to minimize the effects to the Redwood Grove here in the canyon, and as a containment feature to keep the fire from coming out of Redwood Canyon. That is a big giant canyon. It's a big undertaking, but based on the fuels in there, there will not be opportunities to go into that canyon with our crews. It's just too steep, too many hazards, and the likelihood of success in there is very low. Continuing on General's Highway, there's a burn operation that we're coordinating right now to keep fire south of General's Highway. General's Highway is our main primary line for a ways, and then we use some trail systems and some favorable ground where the crews can access on a trail system here to connect back to General's Highway. Moving on around the fire, all this has been shaded for the past few days from the smoke. No flights in here, just way too smoky. Can't gain much intelligence other than our infrared technology. We're having a hard time with getting the resources needed for a few different reasons. One, just the demanding fire season. The crews are timing out. Depending on the agency you work for, it could be a 14-day stint on a fire, a 21-day, or a 30-day. And as the crews reach those times, it's time for them to take days off and then waiting for the rotation to get another crew. We're competing with a few other fires, so that's kind of how the crews and the engine rotations work, as they work for several weeks and then go for days off. That concludes the operational update.
Thank you, Chad. Next, we will hear from Stuart Turner, who is our fire behavior analyst.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Turner. I'm the fire behavior analyst for the team. What I do as a fire behavior analyst is I try to predict what the fire is going to do, where it's going to go, and how fast it's going to get there. And I use three things in my predictions. I look at the topography, the hills, the mountains, the canyons, even the rivers. You know, we know the premise that fire runs faster uphill, slower downhill. So that's based on my calculations and where it's going to go. I also look at the weather and then the fuels. But let's look at the weather. I have a meteorologist on staff that feeds me a daily forecast, and let me give you the forecast that he gave me for tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to see persistent smoke with low humidity. The maximum temperatures are going to be anywhere from 71 to 80 degrees depending on your elevation. The minimum humidities, and that's important to us, so minimum humidities are going to be 10% to 18%, once again, depending on the elevation. The winds are going to be slope valley for most of the fire, but up on the ridge tops, they're going to be 3 to 6 out of the northwest in the afternoon. So with that forecast, I take that and I start looking at the fuels. The fuels, of course, are what drives this fire. And believe it or not, the main driver of a forest fire are the fine dead fuels. Those fuels are less than 1/4 of an inch in diameter. Those are the pine needles, the twigs, that type of stuff. They absorb moisture and don't burn, or they give out that moisture and get dry, and then they start burning. So those fine dead fuels for tomorrow, based on the weather that I was given, they're going to come in about 3% fuel moisture. So they will burn readily tomorrow and allow the fire to spread around the landscape. However, there are a few more factors that we have to consider on that. So if we look at the larger diameter fuels, how are they going to burn? So the next step up, if we look at say the 2x4 size fuels out there, those we call 1,000-hour fuels, those are coming in tomorrow at 7%. So those 2x4s, if you were to go to Home Depot or a lumber store and buy that kiln-dried 2x4, they kiln-dry that down to 12%. So out there in the wild, those fuels are at 7%, will burn readily. So all the fuels out there are ready to burn and available to burn for the fire. So that's important for our fire behavior calculations for tomorrow. So we look around the fire. Let me give you some ideas of where I think this is going to go. So as we look over on the northeast corner, this area where we have a division break, that area is up pretty high. We're getting moderate growth up there, limited fuel availability, and a limited amount of time for that fuel to actually burn. So we're not getting a lot of growth out of there. The smoke stays in there pretty good, but we do get a little bit of wind in there. We still have a little bit of activity down by Morro Rock. It's on a real steep face. That's backing down very slowly, not going anywhere very quickly, but it is still active. Then over by the Castle Creek Grove area, this piece of fire continues to move to the east as it's following the terrain. It's going up the slope, gets on the ridge. Now it's going to sit on that ridge, and tomorrow it's going to try to back down that ridge, and it will back down fairly slowly because it's not going upslope, it's going downslope. On the southern portion of that same flank of the fire, that is an upslope run in there, and that's a big bowl in there. So we have fuels available above the fire for it to run up, and that's going to continue that upslope run tomorrow. We may see some smoke columns coming out of there tomorrow. As we get down into the lower portion of our fire, what we call Division Charlie, this is all backing down towards the road, as you heard from operation. That backing is a slow, methodical process. It's trying to find fuel, back down. However, one of the problems we have is burning material catches on fire and then begins to roll down the hill and ignite fuels down lower. Then that lower ignition will run back up the slope. So we call those rollouts as they roll down. So we still have some rollouts in there. It's very steep country, as you heard from operations. One of the key areas here that you heard from operations is there's a Redwood Creek down here on the south side of the fire, and that's draped down, touching the road, and that's going to continue to bump into the road on both the west and the east side tomorrow. As we come along the fire to the northwest and what we call Division Alpha, we're not getting a lot of fire behavior in there, and I don't anticipate a lot for tomorrow. As we come up into Division X-Ray and Zulu, down by Burnt Point, just south of Burnt Point, you heard from operations where the fire is starting to touch the control line. That's going to continue to burn down to the control line,